The video that you're about to see is a small extract from a live draw where we drew this giraffe for a couple of hours every week over in the Patreon group. The video will give you an idea as to how we drew the eye and even how we drew some of the fur and some of those wrinkles and how we built up the layers to create the colour of the giraffe's coat. If you want to have a go yourself, I'll leave a link to the reference photograph and the line drawing in the description, and you can transfer the process and the methods that I'm about to show you in this video to the rest of the giraffe if you want to. So here you go, here's the video, and I hope you enjoy. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this eye around here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very, very gently just bring this dark sepia around the outside of this eye, just like we did on the other side. I'm not doing anything different. I've got a nice sharp pencil because it's not that big an area, and what I want to do is I want to get the shape of the eyeball, but then just underneath we've just got this extra little bit. Can you just see that? Hopefully you can see that there's that extra little bit of a deeper curve, and that's just putting the tiny bit of the waterline in there. And then I'm just going to follow this around, follow that around there. And then again, we've got another little curve. Let's just have a look at this. Got another little curve that's just coming down here. It's very similar to the other side. We've got the waterline there. Just using little dashes because I find that I have more control over little dashes. I'm just going to add a tiny little curve on the bottom of this line. And take that around. Take that around there. And then, of course, we've got all these lovely eyelashes. I'm just going to plot them in, just really gently, just plot these in. Really gently. And that's pretty much it for the outline of the eye there. We've got this upper eyelid, or the crease of the upper eyelid. That's just going to come over here. So I'm using the line as a guide on the outline that's down. I'm using that as a guide. But I'm also definitely looking at this reference photograph every couple of seconds. Really light round there. And I'm also just going to plot these creases in with this dark sepia whilst I'm here, because it's going to go really, really quite dark in the middle of those creases. But you can see that I'm holding my pencil quite far back, and it's sort of tipped, it's not upright, it's tipped, so that I don't get any pressure. I just want a tiny little bit of pigment just to sort of plot it in, really. Just going to plot that little bit in as well, really tiny. And then let's just have a look. We've got, this is that lovely eyebrow again that's just coming over here. Now all I want to do is just to put tiny little bits in to just almost just sort of map it in. You can see how tiny the strokes are there. It's just to map it in. It's just so that I can start to get this guide of sort of where I am. And then I can put all the base layers over the top of that, and then I can still go back over and put that in again afterwards. But I just want to just sort of start to map things in so that I can make sure that it makes sense at this sort of early stage. Just using my kneadable eraser, and I'm just going to just dab off any crumbs. Okay, just like before, I'm going to use my warm grey one, but I'm just going to sharpen it. I'm going to use a bit of a combination of the warm grey one and probably the buff titanium as well. Let me just grab my buff titanium. If you just grab your buff titanium as well. I think I'm going to start with the buff titanium actually, because what I'm going to do is this little bit right on the side. Let me just get my eraser to take that out completely. I was going to use my my kneadable eraser, but actually that needs to come out completely. And the kneadable eraser is brilliant, but it doesn't always take the pencil all the way back to the paper, whereas the Tombow eraser does. And I'm going to use the buff titanium on this side because there's a lot of light in here. You know, we had the darker side that was in the shadow. It was definitely more grey. And so the warm grey one was a great colour for that. And I'll still probably put a bit of warm grey one into places. But actually, as I look at it, I can see that there's a lot of lovely light colour coming through here. So I'm just going to go over that eyebrow that I've just plotted in. It doesn't matter that I've just smudged it a little bit. It's fine. There's so much going to go into there anyway. But I'm just going to use the buff titanium, bring this around here. Getting the base layer in. Following this around. Just around this eye around here, that's where I'm going to go to the warm grey one. So I'm going to work into the side of this eye with the warm grey one from the polychromos. I'm going to work into the eyebrows as well. The eyelashes rather, not the eyebrows. And then just bring this down this side where it's just a little bit grayer. Bring that down there. And take it over the top of this upper eyelid as well. So we've started to get a nice bit of base layer into there. I'm going to just come in and work on the eye now for the minute. And just like before, I'm going to go in with the warm grey one, and I'm going to put a bit of base layer in to this area. Now I can still just about see the lines in there. If I just plot those back in so that you can see just where I'm sort of working. I want to take probably the burnt sienna. Let's just try the burnt sienna. I'm going to put a little bit of the burnt sienna into this iris at the bottom. Really, really light pressure and just little circular pencil strokes around the bottom of that iris. A little bit of colour in there. And then I'm going to put a little bit of the dark sepia into this. This is the pupil. Now this is going to go quite black. I will be putting a bit of black in here, but I'm going to put a bit of the dark sepia in first, just to give this black a little bit more interest when I put it in. And I'm just sort of bringing I'm bringing these strokes around in little curves into this pupil, and just having it sort of feathering it underneath these lovely big eyelashes. Bring that around, and also this sort of comes around here as well. Let's bring that around there. It goes quite dark down there, doesn't it? It's quite dark down there. So I've got a little bit of the burnt sienna in. This is the brown ochre 10%, and I want to just go into this area and just lighten it. I've just got to make it darker yet, but I am just going to blend it and blend that burnt sienna just a little bit. Blend that in there, and then I'm actually going to bring the pupil down just a little bit more. Bring this pupil down and around here. Darken that down just a little bit. And it's got to be a little bit darker on the bottom as well. I'm just going to darken that down on the bottom. And then I'm going to come back over again with this burnt sienna. A little bit lighter than it is on the other side, this iris. Not so much lighter, but there's just a bit more of it, you know, there's a bit more of a lighter bit in here. The shape in the bottom of that eye as well. Just put in a little bit of the darker colour, so the dark sepia on the bottom, it just really helps to create that, that 3D shape of the eye. I'm going to use the black now, and I'm going to just bring this black over, bring it under these eyelashes as well. Still don't want to press on hard. I can just bring the black over that dark sepia, and also just bring it around the bottom around here. Make sure that's nice and dark in there, just to represent that that iris that's in there and that pupil. Just want to think about coming into these eyelashes and make these eyelashes a bit darker. Now I've got to go in with quite a dark colour, but before I do that, I want to go in with a bit of a grey colour. This is a warm grey 4, and I'm bringing the warm grey 4 into these eyelashes before I start to make them darker. Let's feather those lovely long eyelashes out, and then I'm going to go in with the black again and just break through these eyelashes, just darken them down. And then I want to come back to this burnt ochre and just blend this again. Take that around the side, around there. Just like before, I'm going to come in with the white polychromos pencils, sorry, and I'm just going to add a little bit of the white pencil, which really helps with that lovely glassy feel of the eye. It just gives it that little shine and that little bit of glassiness. And that's really, really useful. Just blending out this waterline on the bottom of the eye as well. And then I'm just going to come back with the dark sepia and just soften out a little bit, just soften out this. Soften out this pupil. I want to just sort of colour this lower eyelid. So I'm just using the cold grey 2 to just colour that. And I think that's pretty much it for the eye for the minute. I'm just going to bring a bit of this cold grey 2 through those eyelashes as well. But I think that's pretty much it for the minute, at least. I might go back and, you know, have a look at that again. Okay, so we've got some colour in the eye. And then what I want to do now is I want to start to build up the colours around the outside of the eye. Now, just like before, just like we've done before, let's start with, we're going to start light to dark, and let's start with the brown ochre, 10%. And I'm going to bring this colour over the side of this face to just tint this buff titanium, create another base layer, Starting to build this unique colour, mixing these colours directly down on the paper. I'm going to leave that the buff titanium right on the edge because it obviously goes quite light there. Leave that for the minute. I might need to darken some of that down afterwards. Another nice base layer into this section. And then I'm going to use the burnt ochre from the polychromos, just like we've done before. And I'm going to work on backwards and forward strokes again, just like we've done before. And bring this pencil around here a little bit. Just tiny little backwards and forward strokes. Really, really tiny strokes. They start to sort of come over this way a little bit, don't they? So I'm just going to start to bring them over here. Still got more colours to put in, but I can bring this over here in the meantime. Start to sort of curve over this way. And just bring that colour gently over this way. We've got this lovely darker bit coming across there. I'm just going to plot a little bit of that in. And just building up the colour really slowly. Building that colour up. Okay, so we've got a little bit of that burnt ochre into there. I'm going to go in with the nugget next. Let me just find my nugget pencil. And then with the nugget, I'm just going to very, very gently start to build in a few of these creases again. So we've got some creases that are just sort of coming around here. I've already plotted them in a little bit with that dark sepia. I'm going to bring some over this way as well. And it's just little dashes. That's all I can put in here. Little dashes. And it starts to sort of come over this way, doesn't it? It starts to come over that eye. So it's just little dashes that I'm just bringing over. And then I want to darken down these creases, but I'm not going to be able to get too much fur direction in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run the pencil down the side of these channels that I've put in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the pencil down the same side of every channel. So I'm running it sort of on the left at the top of the channel. That way, all the shadows and the highlights are all going to match up. So I'm running that pencil down the same side of every channel, every little crease, every little wrinkle. And whilst I've got the pencil in my hand, I'm just looking for areas that I can see just needs to be darkened a little bit. I can see that we need a little bit of darker colour around here. And also, it just goes a bit darker down here, doesn't it? So just using just little dashes. It's nothing, I'm not doing any particularly complicated pencil strokes. It's just little dashes. but sort of coming off in the right direction. I just want to bring them off in the right direction. They're quite diffused little pencil strokes. And you can see there, sometimes it's a dot, you know, just a little dot. That's all I can get in. But all these little dots, they all start to add up. I'm just going to plot this in here, actually. And also, I'm going to plot this down here. This sort of comes around. Comes around down there, so I've started to plot that in. On the side of this eye here, side of these wrinkles, starts to go a bit darker. I'm just darkening this down. And he's starting to really sort of come together now, isn't he? He's got quite a pretty face, actually. Bring this darker bit over here. You can see that I'm going to use a little bit of the burnt sienna in here from the polychromos in a bit. Once I've finished with this, I'm probably going to, well, I might blend it, but then I'll go back to the burnt sienna and bring a bit of the darker colour in there. So we're starting to get a nice bit of colour in here. Now around here, I can see a little bit more of a French grey colour. So I'm going to find my French grey, probably my French grey 30%. I'll just have a look at that. Okay, so this is the French grey 30%, and I'm going to bring some of this French grey around where I can see that it's sort of, it's quite grey, but it's got a brown tone to this grey. Like I say, if you don't have this, you could use your warm grey 2 or 3, whatever you'd got. But I'm going with this because it's just got a little bit more brown. Than the warm greys. And I'm just bringing this over this way a little bit. Using it to blend a little bit. And also bringing it around the side of this eye. So I want to keep this dark colour to the back of this eyelid. There's the eyelid, and I want to make that darker. I'm going over where I plotted in this eyebrow, but that's okay. Well, these, I think it is an eyebrow, isn't it? I'm going over that, but that's okay. I'm just going to bring a little bit of this French grey around here, around the side of this eye, and also just around here. So I'm just sort of bringing the pencil off the edge of this lower eyelid and just putting a little bit of colour into there. I'm going to create some eyelashes there. Really, really light pressure. Let me just grab the brush again. And then bring this French grey around here as well. And just sort of, the colour just starts to come into the upper eyelid there. So I'm just bringing it in a little bit. Just plotting that in as well. So whilst I'm sort of working on an area, if I can see another little landmark that's going to come off, so for instance, this bit here, I'll start to think about plotting it in. I don't worry that I haven't necessarily got the base laid down because I'm only plotting that in, but it just helps me start to develop the drawing. It helps me to start to, you know, make it grow because I'm just plotting extra little landmarks in that I'm going to use when I get to that bit of the drawing. And I find that quite helpful. I really do find that quite helpful. Let's just bring that around there. I'm going to go back to the buff titanium and I'm going to blend this again. Blend this into this French grey. And I might need to go back over it again. Put some on the top of that eyelid as well, and blend it around. Blend this bit, and then that little line underneath there, I want to take that out. So let me grab my Tombow. I want to take that out because I don't want to see a pencil line there. I'm going to dab it, just remove any crumbs, and then I'm going to put it back in with this buff titanium. And this is really light here, isn't it? So I'm just going to use the buff titanium to just blend that. And blend under that eye. And then I put the darker bit on the one side of that crease. Now I'm just using the buff titanium to blend it. Then I'm going to go back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the burnt ochre. Let's go back in with the burnt ochre and just run some tiny little circular strokes along that darker bit again, along the bit that's going to have the shadow in it, or the side of the shadow. And can you see, I mean, it's a tiny space, but can you see how putting the shadow on one side and then the lighter bit on the other side just helps to create these lovely wrinkles, these lovely creases. It could be that the area is so small that you just can't get a circular stroke in, and then I'll just run the pencil along. And you can't always get the circular strokes in. And then I'm just going to come over this space with a bit of a glaze. So just using circle strokes, little circular pencil strokes. I'm going to bring the glaze around here as well whilst I can see that. Bring it down this side. And also take it up along the side of this lovely dark crease. Bring that down there. And I'm just using circle strokes because I want to try and sort of blend out and soften the pencil strokes that have already gone in, keep them really nice and diffused, and also just put a glaze of colour over the top of what's already there. So just bring this lovely colour down the side, or down the middle of that nose. And then let's just come back and just finish these creases off again. I want to come back to the nugget as well. This is the nugget. And I'm going to bring this nugget in again into these creases. So I want to darken that down. So just where I've put the burnt ochre in, I'm going to just go back over part of that burnt ochre with the nugget to darken things down. But also I want to bring this around here, don't I? I want to bring this dark bit down the side and over this eye. And I'm just going to run this nugget around here as well. And goes down. I said I was going to go in with the burnt sienna. Let me go back to the burnt sienna, and just around here I can see, so it comes sort of around the side of these lovely wrinkles. We've got this, it's just a stronger colour, isn't it? So I'm still keeping the pencil lines in the way that they're going in that direction. Taking this darker colour over this way. a little bit. Putting a spot of that colour into that space. Just want to darken that down as well. That just needs to be a little bit darker. Darkening down those creases just a little bit. And then what I want to do, I'm just going to shape that around there just a little bit, that eye. Let me just reshape the edge of that eye just a little bit. That's a bit better. And then what I'm going to do is I want to take the Payne's Grey. Let's start with the Payne's Grey. And I want to plot this lovely eyebrow back in that we plotted in to start with. Now it is going to go black. We are going to put some black and maybe even a bit of the dark sepia in there. But I can just see on this screen that I'm looking at, particularly around here, I can just see that it's just a touch more blue. I'm just going to put a little bit of blue into there. Now, obviously, we all look at, you know, different screens slightly differently. So, but the screen that I can see, I've just got a little bit of blue, like a sort of a blue-grey around there. And I'm just going to put a little bit of the Payne's Grey in. But to be honest, you could put the dark sepia in, you know, you could put a bit of the black in. It doesn't really matter. Let's just darken that down a little bit. I'm going to go in with the black as well and just think about some of these lovely eyelashes coming over the edge of this eye. I think they come out a bit further, don't they? Let's just make them a little bit longer. I've just got my pencil tipped on the side and just using really, really light pressure. That comes down here just a little bit more. A tiny bit down there. So we've got a nice little bit of colour there. I'm going to take the French grey one. A French grey one, sorry, French grey 10%, not French grey one. I was about to say you could take the warm grey one, but the French grey 10%. And I'm just going to very gently just blend that a little bit. Blend what's there. And of course, I could just put a tiny spot of the nugget into that as well, just to make it a little bit more brown still. Got a little bit of the nugget. Needs to sort of come over this way, don't we? A bit of the nugget over here, and it's just going to add that lovely bit of brown into there. I'm going to go in with a dark sepia actually, because this needs to be darkened down a little bit more, but I don't want this to become all black or it's just going to get a little bit flat. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to go in with the dark sepia. I think we've actually got a bit of a crease around here, haven't we? So I need to darken that down around there. Comes down to here. Let's just feather a little bit of the darker colour down there. And also, I'm just going to feather a little bit out from the edge of the eye. So I'm actually just pulling it out from the edge of the eye and just pulling it in curved strokes to just shape this eyelid a little bit. Shape this upper eyelid. Let's just make that a little bit darker. And it just comes around here as well, doesn't it? So this is just a little bit of the dark sepia just to bring a bit of this depth in. And then I'm just going to use little curved strokes this way. I can just see that that's sort of shaping the face there. And this is still the dark sepia, and I just want to soften out these creases just a little bit. So what I'm doing is where we've put the burnt ochre and the nugget, I'm just going to soften those by just running the pencil really, really lightly over those creases, over those little wrinkles. And then let's bring this dark sepia. So I'm just really gently just looking around the edge of this, the eye, just looking around the eye and just looking for areas that just need to be a little bit darker and areas that are just going to help to shape the side of the face. I'm just going to, this is the brown ochre 10%, and I'm just very gently going to run this over the buff titanium just to colour it a fraction, just to colour it a little bit. I don't want to make it go too dark, but it just needs to be toned in a little bit with the rest of the crease. And then I'm going to bring the brown ochre just into this bit as well, just to make that match up. Just tie that in together over here as well. And then it sort of blends out into this lovely light bit, doesn't it, on the edge. Let's just take the brush and just brush that. Yeah, I think that's quite nice. I think we can leave that like that for the minute. Just want to make sure it's nice and dark behind that eyelid. So I've just put an extra couple of strokes behind that eyelid there. But I'm going to leave that there like that for the minute. We'll see. We might need to come back to it. And here's the finished giraffe. Hope that you found this video useful. If you've got any questions, then let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.